We know that our universe that began with the Big Bang began with hydrogen, helium, and so on. And later on, more and more particles started connecting into, let's call it, chunks. And until we reach a state where we see that space is full of different bodies that are connected in different ways and forms, and in these bodies there are plenty of compounds according to the periodic table of elements. And these elements, they're also composed, an atom is also something that's composed, and if we go deeper into it, then there too we see that it's infinite, the depth and complexity and the particles. But all these things, they act in a way that nature, the general force of nature, forces them to connect. And so, different parts of nature, or the different elements of nature, foundations of nature, connect and create different elements like water, gas, and so on. The different kinds of substances. And nature does that without asking anyone. Also, our body, this is how it's built. It consists of many different levels. And what happens next is that nature that develops this way reaches a very special state. It acts, pardon me, acts not only on the levels of the vegetative and the animate, that these are the three levels that we see in nature, and the connections between them and within them, but it also works on our inner level, on the human level, namely in our desires, in our thoughts. And the desire and thought, these are two things that exist in us that also exist on the animate level, and to some extent also on the vegetative level, and even on the still level. But on the human level, the desires and thoughts, they reach a state where we're forced to do something that's above what nature is pushing us towards, so-called above our instincts. The connections that exist in the different forms of nature, like now we discover that all the plants are somehow connected beneath the surface all around the world, that all the still and the vegetative and the animate forms are interconnected and live in some kind of an ecological state of incorporation, integration, and we're also a part of that, even though that we corrupt all this connection by our ego, but we're also a part of the same connection that exists between everyone. But there's another kind of connection that we must realize, which is above nature. And this kind of connection, type of connection, is above nature, meaning above our ego, because we're opposed to nature. We don't want connection for the sake of connection, but we want connection for the sake of our own benefit, meaning by nature, we're the opposite of connection, we're opposed to connection. And here, we're in opposition to nature. That nature is entirely drawn to connection. And if we look at the general development of nature, then we can say that the purpose of nature is to be in a whole and complete connection between all of its parts. And man is the opposite of it. Everyone wants only for themselves. not taking the general law, the integral and global law of nature into consideration, for all of us to be connected together, helping each other, participating with each other as one body. We see that this is what nature is probably pushing us towards, but man, with his entire egoistic force, resists it, doesn't want it. And here we're as if against the force of nature, the law of nature, and we see how much we suffer as a result, and that in man there is something that is also related to his nature, but that is opposite to nature, that is opposed to nature, which is his ego. And then what follows is that all of the forms of nature, the still, the vegetative, and the animate, and the entire universe are drawn to each other, even though they're in struggles with one another, but it's according to the laws of nature. Whereas man is in complete opposition and oppositeness to all of his previous forms, and he wants to control everything. And he suffers as a result. And here comes the wisdom of Kabbalah and says that in order for us to participate with the rest of the parts of nature in connection, we have to acquire the art of connection. We have to master it. That if we will know how to correctly connect with each of the details, parts of reality, in reality, and especially other people, by that we will discover the general law, the integral law of nature, the general law of connection, that encompasses everything, that holds all of us, and that's all there is. And we have to realize and keep this law, we have to understand it, get to know it, meaning to reach the whole and complete connection between the still, vegetative, animate, and man, and especially between all people. This is the purpose of our development to the extent to which we understand it right now.